Thursday, June 27th, 2013. This is the Hermetic Hour, and I am your host, Poke Runyon, and tonight we present a discussion on the 31st path of the Tree of Life, leading from Malkuth up to Hod, revealing the esoteric meaning and symbolism in the Hermetic Qabalah. Now, this is the path of the fire element, leading up the Pillar of Severity to the Mercurial Sphere of Hod. Now, texts for our talk will be Gareth Knight's Practical Guide to Qabalistic Symbolism, Dion Fortune's Mystical Qabalah, and my own Adamson's Quests. And we will also review our video presentation of this pathworking in our DVD, which we offer to associate members. So tune in and walk the hot sands of the Astral Plane. And those of you who have done the shrine initiation, you know what I mean by walking the hot sands. And it's pretty hot in Hawthorne, California tonight. We got the air conditioner running. And so that's fitting for this particular path. Now, to put this in perspective, the 31st path is over on the left side. Remember, we have Malkuth down at the bottom. Malkuth is at the bottom of the tree. Malkuth is in its own, it has its own separate dimension, and that's Kashyyyk, which is the physical dimension. Remember, we said that Malkuth is not just some dirty little bottom of the tree where all of us nasty little humans run around. Malkuth really is the kingdom. It really is probably the most important magical sphere outside of Kether. And according to the Qabalah, a lot of people don't realize this, that the physical world is very, very, very important and very magical. The physical world is where you do things. And you know, when you've passed over and you're in between incarnations, so this is when you think about what you did and you know, wonder how you could have done it better but you don't do very much really as physical, because that is the business that you do in Malkuth. So Malkuth is very, very, very important and very magical. Anyway, Malkuth has three paths leading up the tree. One path, the one we're going to do this evening, is the 31st, and it's over on the left-hand side. In the middle is the 32nd. We did that last week. And over on the right is the 29th, and that leads up to Netzach, the Sphere of Nature. Of course, the middle path, 32nd path, attributed to Saturn and the Earth element, that leads up to Yesod, which is the lunar sphere, the sphere of memory, and the sphere of emotions, and the sphere of the beginning of the astral plane or whatever. And over on the left-hand side, which is the Pillar of Severity, we have Hod, which is the Mercurial Sphere, the sphere of the intellect, and the sphere of knowledge, reason, and you might say also the sphere of technology, and the sphere of progress, the sphere of engineering, the sphere of mathematics, the sphere of all of the disciplines. Now, the word discipline is very important in this. All of the disciplines that we use to progress as human beings, or devolve, as the case may be. Now, to put it in perspective, Netzach over on the other side, on the right-hand side, is the sphere of nature, the sphere that is equated with biological and process, the sphere of the natural forces, the sphere the most spiritual and inspiring aspects of these natural forces. And so it is more subjective and subliminal and more related to the intuitive and the subconscious, whereas Hod is the Mercurial sphere that we're going to go up to tonight is related to the reason and technology and intellect and knowledge, not necessarily wisdom, but lots of knowledge and lots of technical and mathematical abilities and that sort of thing. Now, this is very appropriate that's attributed to Mercury, because think about it. Mercury, the little planet Mercury, is very fast, revolves around the sun very quickly, and it only, it doesn't revolve on its axis. Mercury has a hot side and a very, very cold side. And maybe right where I know some early science fiction writers used to theorize about this, like Mercury had a little belt around it where it was between the hot side and the cold side, and maybe it was only about 100 yards wide where you could actually be pretty comfortable, but that's ridiculous. But I mean, they used to think of it that way. However, that analogy is a very good analogy to keep in mind, because Mercury can be very positive, and Hod can be very positive in all of this knowledge and this technology and mathematics and all of this alchemical work can be very positive, or it can be very, very negative. And keep the planetary analogy in mind with that. Now, I should point out that our concepts in Hermetic Qabalah, even though the Golden Dawn pays lip service to the Zohar's Qabalah in this sense, but the Zoharic Qabalah, it does not postulate negative elements for the spheres themselves. And so if they end up with a tree at the bottom, they end up with a reverse tree, which looks like a reflection downward, which they call the Qliphoth. And we don't, in most interpretations of the Hermetic Qabalah, we'll concede that, yeah, there could be a Qliphoth down there, but we don't really work with it that much. And in the Hermetic Qabalah, we're more monist in philosophical perspective. So we concede that there is both what you call good and what you call evil in these spheres. And in the case of Hod, that certainly applies. And in the case of the path leading up to Hod, it certainly applies. Now, the path leading up to Hod, the 31st path, is attributed to the element of fire, and it should be. And so the element of fire characterizes the path and the experience of the path. Now, also, this path is attributed to the tarot card Judgment. You've all seen that tarot card Judgment with the corpses of the man and the woman and the child coming up out of the graves, and Gabriel is blowing his horn, and the man and the woman and the child are obviously dead because they're gray, and they're being raised, and the old fundamental Christian idea that you lie there in the grave rotting away until Gabriel blows his horn. And of course, out of that we get vampires, because the only way, poor critters, they gotta lie down there in the grave, wait for Gabriel to blow his horn, and then pretty soon they're lying down there and they get to thinking, well, gee, what am I lying down there in this grave for? Why don't I go out and suck some energy off of some people, and maybe it'll make life easier lying down in the grave waiting for Gabriel to blow his horn. So they do, and they go out and they don't suck blood, they suck energy. And the whole idea of vampires sucking blood was something that came about in the 18th century during that strange epidemic of zombification that swept over Europe, and that's what brought that about. Before that time, vampires were exactly what I'm saying. They were energy-sucking ghosts. But I don't think that we need to interpret the tarot card Judgment that way. In fact, Kenneth Grant, who naturally does, but Basil Wilby, Gareth Knight, his interpretation is that it means resurrection. It means a spiritual resurrection, a purging out and a resurrection, like an evolution going up the path. And I prefer to think of it that way. I whether or not it was originally seen that way, I prefer Gareth Knight's interpretation. That this is, you're being reborn. When you go up this path, you're being purged out. This path is, like we said, you're walking the hot sands, you're crossing this fiery desert, and you're purging yourself out, you're being reborn, and there are aspects of that on the way up to Hod. And then up in Hod, you will acquire all this primarily knowledge. As I say, wisdom, hopefully enough knowledge will give you wisdom, but then no guarantee on that. But anyway, let's start out with the symbolism of the path. Now, the symbolism of the path involves, of course, first and foremost, the fire element. So, if we're going to anthropomorphize the path, like we do in our path workings and all, we naturally as we all know, we tend to anthropomorphize virtually everything on the astral plane. We see everything on the astral plane in the terms we're used to seeing on the physical plane. We see astral beings as male and female in animal forms and whatever, whereas in subjective reality, these probably just geometric patterns of energy or whatever, but we see them in the particular anthropomorphic form that we cast them in. And this is true of the salamanders. Now, a salamander, as you know, is a little lizard, but in mythology, Hermetic mythology, the salamander is a fiery little lizard that lives in the fire, is at home in the fire, and yet we tend to see them as kind of like little human figures with fiery arms and fiery legs, and they dance around. This tends to be the way we tend to see them, so they can speak to us. And as you know, in our pathworkings, we contact, especially in the lower paths, we contact these elemental beings. We contacted the gnomes last time. You remember when we were going through the caverns of the gnomes, across the pool of time and the 36th path, and the gnomes talked to us, and they gave us the wisdom of the earth element. And the same thing here with the salamanders in the path of Sheen. By the way, it's attributed to the Hebrew and Phoenician letter Sheen, which in both the Hebrew and the Phoenician form appear to be a sort of a three-armed thing, three points or three yods or whatever. In fact, so a little bit of trivia here, the Vulcan hand sign, live long and prosper, if you recall from Star Trek, where you take your little finger and your ring finger and put them together, and your first finger and the index finger and put them together, and then stick your thumb out. Some people can't do this. That is actually the letter Sheen, and rabbis use that to bless the cup at a Mazel Tov ceremony, at a bar mitzvah. And the way this came about was Leonard Nimoy, Dr. Spock, grew up in a Jewish home, and he peeked one time during a bar mitzvah, and he saw the rabbis doing this. And then when they got on Star Trek and they told him to come up with some kind of a sign for the Vulcans for live long and prosper, he just naturally did this. So that sign represents Sheen, which is one of the three mother letters, and it applies to this path very definitely, the path of fire. Now, to give you an experience, pathworking type experience that you would experience with the salamanders, I'm going to read a little short passage out of Adamson's Quest, which is my pathworking novel that I've been working on for years and years and years and years. We're just getting ready to publish the first book of it. And I don't want you to think that Adamson's Quest is a shortcut to learning pathways, because as Gareth Knight, my old friend Basil Wilby, told me when I got started with this novel, his Quest, he said, Poke, you're going to get off into stuff that's so deep that you're not going to get yourself back, and you're really going to. So, and he was right, because once I started writing this novel, the pathworking script sort of had to get bent and squeezed in a lot of directions. So don't take Adamson's Quest as a substitute for our pathworking program or Gareth Knight's or whatever. However, in this particular case, it really does fit. Okay, so Adamson is getting ready to go across the natural bridge across this river of fire. He's going up the path, and Adamson expected his clothes to catch fire and his flesh to be seared, but instead he experienced a warm tingling sensation along with a tremendous burst of strength and energy. He suddenly felt as if he could lick his weight in wildcats. He opened his tight-squeezed eyes and found himself surrounded by dancing little creatures of fire. And the largest of them perched on his staff and spoke to Enoch in a raspy voice. "What's your birth sign?" "Cancer," Adamson declared. "Too much water, wishy-washy," says I. "Well, I can't help when I was born," the fool protested. Derisive laughter from all sides. "Who told you that?" the fiery spokesman of the salamanders asked. "Some wimpy astrologer. If you gotta be a water sign, why not be a Scorpio? They got balls." "Well, what about a lady Scorpio?" Adamson couldn't help asking. You couldn't handle a lady Scorpio, you wuss." Adamson remembered the last lady Scorpio he tried to handle, and he was forced to agree, although he didn't want to admit it. "I just want to get across the bridge," he said. "Not so fast. Nobody gets across our bridge without a fight. Put up your dukes." "Fight who?" "Fight me, you mother." Oh, a disturbingly familiar voice from his childhood shouted. Adamson blinked in surprise as he saw, standing before him, I got to turn the page here, standing before him, the teenage bully who had made his 7th grade school year a living hell of shame and unmanliness. But Benny was a stripling of 13. It wasn't fair. Enoch shook his head. "I can't do this," he told the salamander. "He's just a kid." "So are you dumbass," the fiery hip replied. Adamson now realized that his garb and accoutrements had shrunk along with him in size. He, too, was just a kid, and this was scary. Benny had beaten him up twice and sent him running home crying. Fear and blind rage now raced through the younger fool, his nervous system like galloping horses yoked in tandem. Benny wasn't going to make him cry and run again. This time Enoch had a big stick, and he was going to use it. Adamson wielded his bronze-weighted staff in a two-handed clubbing attack, and he could see terror widening in Benny's eyes. Hey, don't fear, his young antagonist pleaded. But it was too late. Benny the bully tumbled head over heels, screaming all the way down to instant cremation far below. All that marked his passing was a little puff of greasy black smoke. The salamander had perched himself on Enoch's shoulder. "Now, didn't that feel good?" he asked. Adamson had returned to normal size. "As a matter of fact, it did," he admitted. "I just wish I could feel guilty about it." "Better be glad you don't," the salamander confided. "Otherwise, we'd send you down there after him." Now, this is the sort of thing that you learn, you see. This is the kind of thing you learn doing this pathworking, because, these elementals are really, they're ruthless. They're going to tell you, they're going to really tell you the way it is. And so, when you confront these creatures in a pathworking, you'll be surprised. Sometimes not so pleasantly, but you will learn. Anyway, we go on from the salamanders over the bridge. And the next thing you go through, and this is part of the symbolism of the path, is what we call the Valley of the Bones. And what this is you go down into this valley. And by the way, this is all dry. This is like Arizona on a hot day. I mean, this is just like you're sort of going through Sedona, and Sedona is beautiful too, by the way. But you're going down into this canyon, and as you go down, you see evidence of all of the evolution of the Earth, all the way from the earliest trilobites all the way through the dinosaurs. And finally, you get to the human remains as you start widening out into the valley below. You get to the signs of human remains. And then you come to some very strange-looking human remains. And you're not told what they look like, but you're told to remember what you see. And that's important because we're looking at a long track here. This path has to do with the evolution of the human race. And some of the things you're going to learn way, way deep down, because remember, Pythagoras said, Pythagoras said, and Socrates repeated, that you don't learn anything. You just remember things as you go through. So you are remembering something from way, way, way back, which you will remember and put in your book of memory and have after you come out of the path. Now, we go out, we leave the Valley of the Bones, and then we go on. By the way, this is all in our pathworking video. Except you don't have to fight with the salamanders unless they want you to. I mean, what I read you was for Adam's quest. But we go on and we come to the city of the pyramids. Now, I know you've heard about the city of the pyramids in Crowley. Crowley did a lot with that. The city of the pyramids actually is a city of tombs. And this is part of the symbolism of this path, is this resurrection idea. Now, you go into the city of the tombs and you find your particular pyramid. You go inside there, and I'm going to tell you exactly how this occurs, but let me put it this way. You are entombed, and then you will make a very, very interesting ascent from that tomb and up into outer space, and this is quite a significant thing, and you want to remember what you experience in this. And then you're going to come back, you're on the path again, and we're going to move on up to the base of this great big huge mesa. And this mesa is kind of like Devil's Tower, and it's this great big tall huge pedestal, maybe a mile around it, and easily half a mile high. And up on top, you can see up on top the great brass dome of the library of Hod. And this Hod is a gigantic library. It's like the library of Alexandria, only 10 times more so. This is the library of the universe. And the thing about this is that, that's Hod, but how do you get up there? Now, that's where we really have I think something rather significant, which is unique to us, but we came up with a way of getting you up there to that top of that mesa where you can enter the library. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, except just the term spoilers. Well, we don't want to do spoiler, but we do want to say this, that in order to get up there to where you can appreciate the knowledge in the library, to where you won't misuse it, and where you won't misinterpret it, you have to first go through a process which Carl Jung called individuation. So we have a technique, and we've symbolized it, of course. We've symbolized a process, human individuation for you, in order to get you up to the top of that mesa. Something that you're really, really going to find significant. I remember one person who took the Pathworking who didn't want to go through that process, and later on, when we did the critique, and I asked him how he had enjoyed this individuation process and what he learned. He said, "Oh, I didn't know that. I found an entrance, a little entrance, and I found a staircase leading up inside the mesa, and I went up that way." Well, okay. I have since, I'm going to tell you right now, I have since gone back there and I have walled up that entry city town, so you can't use it anymore. You have to go through our process of individuation to get up to the top there. But once you get up there, then you get into the library. The library is huge, as it's covers the whole top of the mesa with this gigantic dome. And you go into the library, and it is, well, we just came back from the Capitol in Austin, Texas. It's just kind of awesome to stand in there in the middle of the pentagram, in the middle of the floor, the marble floor in the Austin, Texas Capitol, and look up. If you can imagine something 5 or 6 times bigger than that, at least, you got an idea of what you're in here, this huge dome. And there are these galleries all the way up, going all the way up to the top of the dome. Now, the galleries contain all the knowledge and the wisdom that human beings have ever encountered or recorded, all the maps and the charts and the books and the scrolls and everything imaginable, all in a language you can read. And we've even digitized it all. We have a nice little floating orb with an eye that follows you around and guides you, and has a little laser pointer that brings things out for you. We're getting up to date with this thing here, so you can access anything. And one of the most interesting things about this library is the pillars that hold up these galleries are made up of heads of very, very wise men and women, all through history and before history. And these heads they're kind of elongated, but you can recognize who they are. And you find the head of a philosopher or a magician, or the ladies like to go to Hypatia. She's pretty popular with the ladies. And of course, naturally, Franz Barden's there. And if you want Crowley, yeah, you'll find Crowley up there. He's there. And of course, Socrates and Plato and Iamblichus and Empedocles and all of the, if you please, and Empedocles if you don't please. I mean, we got them all. They're all there. Anyone you want. And a few of them that you never heard of, but they're there. And you can go. And one of the best experiences on the Pathworking is to go to one of your heads that you like and converse with that sage and remember what that sage has to tell you. That so you can go anytime to the library and you can access that wisdom. Now, in the center of the library, we have a big pool and it's the well of the worlds, and above it, hanging suspended down from the dome, is a gigantic armillary of the solar system, which was reflected down in the pool. So you can look down into the pool and you can see broad events. This is not for individual sort of things, but this is broad events in the history of the planets and the Earth, and reflected in the pool. We also have over in a side, there's a niche, and in that niche is a big book up on a pedestal, and this is the Book of Fate. And you are permitted to read one page of the Book of Fate when you visit the library. It's not recommended, but you are permitted to read one page. Some people do and some people don't. And I frankly don't think you should, especially not the first visit to the library. But you are permitted to read one page. Then down in the basement of the library, we have a huge alchemical laboratory and scientific laboratory, and we have giant Tesla equipment, and you could hear the crackling electricity, and you can smell the ozone, you can smell the chemicals from down below, and you go down this staircase and look down at this huge laboratory and machine shop and everything. And this is where all of the scientific, technological action takes place. And you can talk to the great alchemists down there. Talk to Tubal-Cain. You can get your ideas for your science developments projects that you have. And so this library represents exactly what it's supposed to. It represents the accumulated knowledge and skill and craftsmanship of the human race, which is exactly what the Mercurial Sphere should have. But as for wisdom, well, that is in a sense up to you. We have to realize that Mercury has its dark side, and also realize that according to some philosophy, and they may be right, that men do. See, it's kind of part of the idea of that somebody said one time that men do and women are. Well, I don't think that's exactly true, but I mean but men, let's put it this way, men overdo. Men seem to have to do something, even if it's wrong. And about half the time it is. But they got to do it, And so that's the key to this. The key to Hod is understanding that this is not just men, because there are a lot of women that are the same way. They got to do too. Women are, now the women are liberated, we're finding out that they're just as, in many ways, they're just as ferociously technical as we are. And I'm saying we because, I still think I still think of myself as a man. I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to think of myself as something else these days. I don't know, but whatever. But however, be aware that one of the key aspects of this sphere, not just me talking, this is everybody that discusses this sphere and its meaning and all will tell you this. The key aspect of Hod is, what is this knowledge? Is this skill? Is this technique? Is this acquisition, skill, engineering, or whatever it is you're doing? is it really good or is it not? You have to continually ask yourself, because, as I said, half of the stuff that men are compelled to do, they may even think it's good. Sometimes they don't. But, I mean, even if they think it's good when they start out, it oftentimes turns out that we would have been better off without it. Or even if we are better off with it, in the long run, we're not. And so it is up to you. It's up to you to bring the wisdom, or to have the wisdom, develop the wisdom, to use the resources of this sphere in the right way. Now, I'm not a tree hugger. I love trees, and I'm not trying to protect the spotted owl. I don't know any spotted owls, but I'm not really, if they went extinct, I'd be sad, but I wouldn't be, whatever. And yet, at the same time, you have to realize that, yes, we are doing a lot of violence to the environment, and yes, we should take that sort of thing in consideration. And yet, you charge into Hod and just start doing stuff, you're liable to end up doing stuff that isn't going to help the environment, and it might not even help your fellow human beings. So, constantly be aware of that. Now, the thing about Hod that we want to point out is that Hod also in our system is the psychic center right below the navel, and in Tibetan practice, that's the Tumo center. Now, I know those who are into Woodruff's type, South Indian model would disagree with that, but we don't use the South Indian model. We use the Western model in this particular instance, and of course the Tibetan model in this particular instance agrees with us, that this is the fire center. This is the center where, and Tumo, I need to point out that Tumo is not just for running out, for joining the Polar Bear Club and running out into the snow in your underpants and then generating enough heat in your body to dry yourself off. That's not the purpose of Tumo. That's just a demonstration that monks do occasionally. They dry wet towels in zero weather and all that. That's not the purpose of Tumo. Tumo is to generate the fire element for creative purposes. That's the purpose of Tumo. And that is, of course, also the purpose of this whole path and sphere. I mean, the use of these elements, especially the fire element in this case, for creative and for positive purposes. And so what I'm trying to point out here is that you have in your Tumo center, in your psychic center below the navel, in that Hod and Arsis, you have your own blacksmith down there, your own Tubal Cain, your own Kusor and Cassis, who is down there in your own little workshop down inside, and he can do and produce virtually anything that's in the big workshop in the library, under the library. And so you can visit your own counterpart in the Sphere of Hod inside your, and that's something that is aided by first doing this pathworking, and you can actually make a connection with Hod, which you can take inside yourself. Now, one of the things that I want to point out about the pathworking system in general is that these paths are not absolutely this way. You know that the paths and the spheres are schematic. They're, as what Regardie once said, they're a filing system, a filing cabinet. You put all sorts of things that apply to different spheres. You have and you place and you catalog in these particular spheres. And also, you remember too that Hermetic philosophy is very, very much entwined with and operates through the medium of astrology. And so the paths on the tree of life and the head are attributed to the planets and the signs of the zodiac and the elements. So your astrological aspects are very, very important. And your own chart. You take your own chart and you can use the tree of life in interpreting your own chart. And you can use your path experiences and your sphere experience, both in and exterior meditation we're doing with the pathworking, or interior meditation like you're doing with your psychic center system, you could use your own astrological correspondence to be enhanced, matched, or expounded with the experience in the paths as you work the paths of the tree of life. Now, we walk the paths, as you know. We walk the path. We walk them as if we are, just like Adamson with his fool's outfit, and Adamson's all dressed up, in the fool's outfit, just like the tarot card, and he walks these paths, and that's the way we do it. We walk along as if this path is actually a trail through a landscape. Well, it really isn't, but that's what we anthropomorphize the various creatures that we meet. We use familiar structures like the pyramids and things like this for particular experiences that we want to have in order to get these principles of the paths and the spheres across. Now, in the upper paths, in the paths where you go to a sphere, let's say you go up to Yesod. So you want to go on from Yesod up to Tippereth. Well, that's, of course, path of temperance towards 25. So you want to, now, what would you do? Would you walk the whole path that you have before, all the way up to go through the cavern and the gnomes, and through the forest of fear, and across the Gulf and the Pesh, and up into the Colossus and all of that, and then somehow get down the other side and walk all the way up to Tippereth? No, that's not very practical. So for the higher path, we developed, and as far as I know, we're the only group that does this. We developed a boat. We call it the Ibis boat, and it's a boat, and you see it in the path in our Pathworking video. Those of you who members that have it, at the tail end of the video, I show you the boat on the altar, several views of it. And the boat it's black on one side, the left side, and white on the other, and it has its wings folded along the thwarts. And then it has a beach, in front. But it also has a compass, and it has little places where a couple of candles, proper color of the sphere it's going to. It has a rudder, it has a cockpit, and it has this compass. And this boat we place up on top of the altar, point it toward the soul door, put the mandala of the sphere that we're going to, and stick that on the soul door. And then we all make ourselves make our bodies very big and make our spirit bodies very small, and we go climb on the boat, and the boat spreads its wings, and off we go, and we fly over the path that we've already done, and then we land and leave the boat and walk the path that we haven't done, and up to the sphere. This is a beautiful little system, and it really it works very, very well. And this enables us to have a way of actually not having to repeat the walking all the way through. And as I said, you can see that, and you can see that demonstrated, the boat shown in the Pathworking video. Now, the other sphere on the other side is Netzach. And Netzach's a sphere of nature, as I said, and the path leading up to that is attributed to the moon. And this is a perfect balance. This is on the Pillar of Mercy, and it's a perfect balance to what the experience over in Hod. Because what we have over in Netzach is the temple of Astarte, and Astarte sits in an asana, and she's about 50 feet tall, and she sits in an asana inside her temple, and she has all the psychic centers blowing inside her. She is the whole universe. In other words, this is like Tara among the Tibetans. The Tara cult among the Tibetans, Tara represents the universe itself, the physical universe. Now, Astarte represents the physical universe there in Netzach, and our entire psychic center system, and with all the chakras, is inside Astarte. So you can have that experience, and that is appropriate to the sphere of Netzach. Whereas over in Hod, we're concentrating on knowledge and on skills and knowledge and apparatus, all of these very, very ruach rational things. They may not actually be rational, but at least we think they're rational anyway. Whereas the experience in that is natural, visceral, very subjective, and that's where the relationship of the goddess to nature itself resides. Now, if Mike Downs is standing by us, would you want to call in, Mike? Well, anyway, okay. We're going to have Mike Downs from the Atlanta Lodge in Atlanta. We're going to be calling in right shortly, and so we'll kind of review a little bit while we're waiting for Mike to call in. Now, as we said tonight, we essentially covered the 31st path, which leads from Malkuth up to Hod on the left side of the tree, up to the Pillar of Severity, and attributed to the fire elements, the mother letter Sheen, which is the letter of fire, the tarot card Judgment. And this is, as I said, a severe path, and leading up to the library at Hod. Mike, are you there? Cyrus, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, good. How did Adonia go on your end out there in Atlanta? What?
Full of magical.
We're not hearing you very well.
Okay. How's this? Is this any better?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah, great magical week there. Did some midnight magic. Did past the forest on Sunday. All around it. Now there was not able to the spirit of the 31st path and hope do anything because
we're having some real transmission problems, and you're coming through just very spotty.
Okay. Tell you what, I'm
reading you about 2 by 2.
Okay. Calling back. I'll call back.
Okay, call back. Right. Yeah, this is sometimes a problem when we're both using cell phones here. So, Mike will call back if he gets a better connection. Now, the next week, if we're fortunate enough to get a hold of this fellow, we will. So otherwise we will continue with our work in our paths. But next week we would like to see if we can get Frater Ashen Chassan, who has written the book Gateways Through Stone and Circle, a manual of evocation for the planetary intelligences. This is published by Nephilim Press in South Carolina, and this is an excellent book on scrying, angelic scrying. And it's Frater Ashen Chassan primarily uses the Trithemius Book of Secret Things out of the Magas as his basic grimoire reference for doing this. He put his own equipment, and he has beautiful illustrations in the book. And I've already gotten through the whole introductory aspect of it, and I've listened to him on Andre Vitamus's podcast, and he is very, very knowledgeable, very, very good. He's a magician after our own heart, and we'd really like to see if we can get him on board. This book of his is very, very, very well worth reading. Mike, are you just about back?
Hey, that's Dion. How you doing? Is this any better?
Yeah, sounds a lot better.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. I was just hoping that in the spirit of the 31st path and Hod, which we've been talking about tonight, and divine doing of technical stuff, we've got Frater here, Frater Galen, who was admitted to the hospital tonight. He's got double pneumonia, and I was wondering if we might be able to send him a little bit of heat and move some spiritual energy his way, maybe in something hermetic. I was wondering if you could lead us in the Hermetic Caduceus middle filler ritual. We could bring down some energy and bring it up to Hod for your Tiferet for healing, and we could dry him out and get him out of the hospital.
All right, let's try this. We'll use the four letter. This is sort of thing Merrick does, but he based on Abalafia's idea. Except we use our tetragrammaton. So we'll try Shama Ta, but using the A-E-A-O-U. Okay, so it's Asha, Ema, Isha, Ota. You got that?
Master, it's my turn to have some communication problems. I'll tell you what,
right,
you just do it on the radio.
Yeah, let's try to do it together.
Okay.
Asha, Ema, Ida, Uta, Asha, Ema, Ida, Uta, Masa, Ema, yeah. Now, when you do this, take your vowels, and then what you're doing, the old idea of putting the vowels into the consonants of the tetragrammaton produces your permutation. You can do these things endlessly. So the idea here is, and you could do them all sorts of variations. You could take, for instance, you could use a different. You could go from Shama Ta to Ma Ta Sha. So and then you keep rotating them. And you could do this over and over and over again. Gareth does this with Yod He Wow He, and it is very effective. It's a very effective healing situation. And then what we do, now this is GD of course, but then we put the name of the person we're trying to heal and put it on a talisman, and then put it in the healing jug, and everybody charge it and put it in while we're doing this. And so. What I did was just to get you started. But once you get to write that out so you can follow it and get your group together and heal this fella. How's that sound?
Well, definitely we're going to need to work on that. Certainly.
Yeah, that's good. Sufis do this. Yeah, Sufis do this too. I mean, this is one of the best ways that I know of in our way to heal. Anyway, we've only got a little bit left. Thank you for calling in, Frederick Cyrus, and like I say, my best wishes and healing power to this fella. And next week, hopefully next week we'll do gateways through Stone and Circle, but otherwise it'll be a path and good magic.